on Storyboard on the sidelines of BrandZ Top 75 Most Valuable Indian Brands 2020 report. We are catching up with Preeti Reddy CEO South Asia Insights Division at Kantar and David Roth CEO the Store WPP EMEA and Asia and Chairman of BrandZ about the key insights from this report. We are also catching up with Manish Chopra, Director and Head of Partnerships Facebook India, to find out about what will the new Reel tab mean for creators and brands both, and what has been the response to Reels in India so far. Hello and welcome to Storyboard. This is Shibani Gharat. But before we begin the show, let's take a look at some of the latest happenings from the world of advertising and marketing. Apple just finished its Time Flies events this week. Although we are still awaiting the new iPhones, the company took the wraps off its watches and the all-new iPads. And like this year's WWDC, we got all the news through a video streamed online. There was no in-person event to accompany the arrival of the new products. At the special Time Flies event this week, Apple announced Watch SE, Watch Series 6, iPad Air, 8th generation iPad, and a few new services. Network Advertising has announced the appointment of Harish Shriyan and Amit Ray as executive directors. Shriyan was earlier Group CEO of Omnicom Media Group and has played an important role in establishing Omnicom Media Group in India. Ray ushers in an expansive mind-hunt on multinationals like Unilever and Nestle and Indian corporations like ITC and Reliance Jio. He has headed the media function in agencies like Mudra and has been on the client side holding a leadership position at Reliance Infocom. Ray has been the longest serving chairman of the technical committee at MRUC. And on this week's notice board, we are showcasing Horlicks' new TVC that celebrates confidence that empowers today's children. Let's take a look.
गाड़ी में रहो। क्या कर रही हो? पापा को देखा था।
तुम कब इतने बड़े हो गए? हॉर्लिक्स, दूध, गेहूं, विटामिन्स।
And now let's get on with the rest of the show. Kantar and BrandZ have released their BrandZ Top 75 Most Valuable Indian Brands 2020. Ankita Saxena speaks to Preeti Reddy CEO South Asia Insights Division Kantar and David Roth CEO the Store WPP EMEA and Asia and Chairman of BrandZ about the key insights from the report, which sectors performed well, and in trying times like these, what has led to their growth? Listen in.
Hi David, hi Preeti. Welcome to CNBC-TV18. Many thanks for joining us.
Hi Ankit, great to be here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
David, I want to begin by asking you, you've come out with the BrandZ 75 Most Valuable Indian Brands 2020 report. Take us through the key insights and the key trends from the report.
So we've seen some rising stars and we've seen drops in others. I think overall the CPG, the retail category, the telecoms category have very much managed to increase their values, whereas the BFSI, the auto, the alcohol sectors have seen a decline. The top risers, and we've seen some big rises in this year's valuations, led by very much the digital players and the retail players and the food players being phenomenally strong during that period in time. I think overall, I would say the status of the top 30 Indian brands is remarkably strong and holding up very much as well. And I think one of the things to me, when I have obviously the ability to look at the valuations from brands right across the world, not just India, and compare India to what's going on across the world, is this, that one of the key elements we know that drives brand value is the whole notion of brands being very meaningful and being significantly different.
Preeti, David mentioned a very interesting point that the brands that have done well were significantly different. Now, the report says that retail and telecom sectors have outperformed all the categories and seen an increase in their brand value. What factors led to their growth, and what measures do you think they resorted to in dealing with the pandemic that were perhaps significantly different and could provide a great lesson to other brands?
Thanks, Ankit. That's actually a really interesting question because during the pandemic, actually these two sectors really came into their own. And let's look at them separately and then see if there are some common learnings and some common ground that is there, that resonated with the consumers and made the retail and telecom brands outperform all other categories. If you look at retail, the whole ecosystem actually came into play. The e-commerce, the payment wallets, they gained from the pandemic. The spread of all that went not only in urban upper SEC, but middle SEC, lower SEC. They went to small and medium enterprises, small retailers, logistics agencies. All of them gained from from the conditions of the pandemic. But so that was, that is an environmental factor. The other one was that whether they were grocers or they were kirana stores or they were e-commerce sites or whether they were brick and mortar people, they all really stepped up and to try and meet consumer needs. Yes, it took a little while. Some did it faster than the others. There were glitches in the beginning, but if you look at how the whole, how consumers are actually now being serviced by retail, they are taking orders on WhatsApp. They tied up with housing societies to accept digital payments. Beyond essentials, even e-commerce, online companies brought healthcare closer to consumers. Masks, sanitizers, PP kits, all of that. They closed the demand supply gap there. Telemedicine, online consultations, all of these witnessed a surge. And within a month, actually, all retailers had their digital presence up and running. They tied up with the local kiranas, neighborhood stores, etc. And of course, online shopping did see a surge. And many of these online shoppers were being onboarded for the first time ever in their lives. If you look at telecom very briefly, similar things happened in the sense the government helped, the changing consumer habits helped because they were digitizing and payment channels, all of that. But also a lot was driven by the players again who rose to the occasion to give consumers much needed respite. They didn't milk their consumers during this time. They actually looked at how can I help them at a time when they're most vulnerable. So they did things like Airtel, I think, or somebody extended the prepaid validity. Airtel, they gave 10 rupees credit to some 8 crore of customers. Jio added 100 minutes of talk time. Airtel, there's an amazing thing. They paid the basic salaries of over 30,000 employees of their partners in May. And they gave, free access to, Airtel gave free access to 1 year's courses worth 6,000 rupees as part of their plan benefits. So the many other things like this they did. So really the learning from both the sectors is that for success in difficult times, you need to be agile. You need to reach out to consumers and customers and stay connected with them. And you have to be really innovative in satisfying their needs. And don't use that difficult situation to, like I was saying, to milk your customers at a time when they are most vulnerable, because they will remember that you were there for them when they needed you most. And I think that's the learning for us.
Preeti, those were very interesting insights that you mentioned. Now, speaking of the surge in the e-commerce space and the online purchases, with the digitization of retail stores, even the Kirana stores, the new buying behavior that the consumers have formed, are they here to stay in the long run, or is it too early to say that? And what are the long-term transformations that we can expect, not just in the consumer behavior, but also in the overall working of the businesses?
Right, right. Again, very interesting question, because we've done work, which Kantar's done work, which shows that consumers say that they will stick to their new habits. They have adopted new habits of shopping, and new habits across the board, actually, shopping, consumption, all of that. And they're saying they will stick to these new. Half of them say they will stick to these newly acquired behaviors. They're helped by, again, the fact that the pandemic has forced us to digitize so rapidly and so aggressively. And they've experienced now the convenience of shopping from their phones, from shopping from their homes. So it's taken away some of those apprehensions and concerns. But there are some other things that are happening that I think will be longer term trends. One is, you've seen that in some cities, there is direct from farm produced is actually being delivered to the home. And that is, something that I think is likely to stay, not only because it's convenient, but also because of hygiene and safety concerns. With Kiranas and the general trade actually transforming themselves in terms of becoming in terms of what they're doing online, overall retail interaction with consumers will come down. And this will impact the way that brands activate their last mile, actually, because you cannot now assume that the shopper will always come to the store to buy. So habits formed will stay, but there will be changes in the way that those habits will also manifest themselves.
David, it's interesting that Preeti mentions now that brands will have to get used to, or brands will need to understand that, they will see less of customers in their stores, or perhaps lesser footfall. Now, David, brands the world over are being tested. They're more vulnerable in countries such as India that was going through an economic slowdown even before COVID-19. Now, to deal with such unforeseen changes such as COVID-19, the business models will have to change. What are the key pillars of the new business model that you think will help brands stand the test of time?
To me, I think there are two really, really important factors that everybody needs to look at. The first is the importance of agility. And we've seen that in those brands, retailers who have coped very, very well over the course of the last few months. And the single thing that binds all those together is those businesses that have been very quick to adapt, agile organizations, fast decision making, local decision making, and being able to implement really quickly. What we're finding, I believe, is that getting things 70 to 80% right and fast is significantly better than getting things 100% right and never. And I think now the consumer is much more willing to put up with a few things that might be rough around the edges for the notion of speed as well. The second, I think, is all about collaboration. And if you have a look at, I suppose, the history of brands, we went through the first era of product brands, the likes of Unilever and P&G, really teaching the world how to become brands and manage brands. The next iteration of that, I would say, was the corporate brands, the likes of DuPont, etc., realizing how important the corporate brand was. Then we moved, I suppose, to the era of platform brands, the likes of Google and the likes of Amazon and Facebook. Now I believe we're going to be entering a new era for brands, and that's the era of the ecosystem brand. And that's being able to collaborate with people to create and develop ecosystems around you that add value to the consumers, that have the ability to be able to move very fast with tremendous speed.
All right, David, Preeti, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed. Next time in person, I hope.
Thank you.
It is time for us to take a short break. On the other side of this break, we are catching up with Facebook India's Manish Chopra to find out what will the newly launched Reel tabs mean for brands and content creators both, and what has been the response to Reels in India so far.